Be interesting now. Now, how do you feel about the weather getting colder and the nights drawing in? I always try and focus on things like that are exciting, like Halloween. The kids love Halloween. I nearly bought an 8-foot witch today. I didn't. That was just because I was on a train. And then things like fireworks night as well, because the smells and the leaves and everything else like that. But it can really affect a lot of people, you know. And I know in myself that I can tend to go a bit down, especially if there's a lot of rain around. And it affects 2 million people in the UK. It's called Seasonal Affective Disorder. Its main symptoms are low mood and lack of interest in life. Now, Lauren Bell is a cognitive behavioural therapist. Nearly got it. And she's here to tell us more. Lauren Bell, hello.
Hi there, Becky.
Lovely.
Right.
I am so good. I'm so good. I've had me lion's mane and me turmeric and my magnesium today, darling. I feel like I'm counselling my own brain at the minute. Because CBT, cognitive behavioural therapist, it's also shortened to CBT, isn't it? I'm seeing it everywhere at the moment. Now, whether or not that's because I'm interested in sort of neurological things for myself, and it's coming up all the time. But what is it for people that don't know?
Yeah, so cognitive behavioural therapy, so it's a type of therapy. I always explain to my patients it's a type of therapy that's a blend of talking therapy, so you obviously go and you speak to your therapist, but then it's also a blend of practical and skills-based kind of therapy techniques as well. So it's a really, really good type of therapy for people who want to, you know, go and speak about how they're feeling, but also learn strategies and ways of coping with how they're feeling. So it's a very kind of, I always say to people, very collaborative therapy. So it's very much about us as therapists teaching people about why they feel like they do, and then giving them the skills that they need to get better.
Because it's not all just about sort of routine or things like that, even though I know that massively helps. But to a lot of people, routine is like the devil anyway. And it's like being said, oh, you know, you've got to go and do a load of admin, which automatically makes me want to throw up. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. So cognitive behavioural therapy, so the cognitive part of it means cognition is thought. So it's the way that we think and the way that we perceive things. So a big part of CBT is about helping people to change their mindset and the way that they are appraising things, the way that, you know, they're thinking about things in general. So like you say, we do the behavioural stuff, which is very much about routine and getting people to do pleasurable activity and things they enjoy. But there's a big part of it which is about getting inside your head and, you know, challenging the way that you're approaching things as well in a mental way.
So seasonal affective disorder, right? Yeah. Again, when does it affect people the most?
Well, like you were just saying, it tends to be as the winter months start to approach. So as we start to notice lower levels of daylight, worse weather, rain is a big thing, like you said. That's when we start to notice the kind of the onset of seasonal affective disorder. So you'd probably be looking at maybe start of October time that people might start to notice these kinds of symptoms coming on.
Can I ask you something right then? And I know this sounds a little bit strange, right? But I can imagine as a therapist, you've been asked stranger things. So I always, and I get knocked for this, because I love putting my Christmas decorations up early, right? Because of the bright lights and the colour and everything else, because I feel it changes my mood. Am I right with that? Is that something that, you know, does make us feel better?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's different, but if Christmas is a really, really positive thing for you, you know, if you like the lights and the feel of Christmas, of course, kind of doing something like that is going to make you feel better. And like you were saying, I liked what you said as you just introduced me about kind of Halloween and, you know, doing things, trying to focus on the things that you do get kind of pleasure from and do enjoy. Because even though the days are darker and the weather's horrible, actually, doing those things that you get pleasure and enjoyment from, like, you know, having more of that in your life can make you feel so much better. And there's something that's quite cosy as well, isn't there? About having your Christmas lights on and the fire and snuggling up on the sofa with a blanket or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know, would you advise doing that sort of? Again, like I like to try and write things down that I'm, you know, grateful for or that I find pleasure from. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to speak. But, you know, things like, you know, the snuggly blankets. So I've got several of them. So that we've always got one, you know, nice cushions on the sofa. I've got into this a certain selling website on Facebook that's relatively cheap, and things keep arriving through the post randomly. But one of them was a multicoloured rug, right, for the kitchen, which has made me happier to be in the kitchen. So are these things that you would put into practice?
Definitely. You know, often I'll suggest to people, you know, having like we call it like a mood box. So if you're feeling rubbish, having like a box with things in it that make you feel better. So it might be a nice scented candle, or, you know, a little bit of a treat bar, or, you know, just something that you know is helpful for you. So yeah, really engaging the senses and really just trying to make the best of things. So even though, you know, the weather's maybe not how we want it to be, there are lots of things that we can still engage with and still get a lot of kind of pleasure and positive reinforcement from. So yeah, if a rug's your thing, go for it, or if you like a blanket, or, you know, hot chocolate. But it's just very much about making the best of things and making it as kind of enjoyable as possible, really.
And it's said that, you know, affects around 2 million people, right? Yeah. Do you reckon it could be more than that? Because is there an actual, you know, it affects more than 2 million people, but I would suggest really that it is a thing, because like plants, they don't grow that much without the sunlight. They don't grow without the right water, etc. Are we not, you know, effectively that?
Yeah, I mean, I always say to people, like, if you think back to caveman days, which is where we've all originated from, humans would go into kind of more of a hibernation mode in the winter time because, you know, there wasn't as much kind of food to forage and things like that. And it was safer to kind of snuggle up and hide away when it was dark. So kind of in terms of, like, on a evolutionary level, yeah, I think we are, as humans, we are supposed to kind of slow down and kind of feel a bit more depressed in the winter months. And like you say, I think it is probably more kind of widespread and more common than, say, we might hear in the news or media. But there is a difference. There's what we call winter blues, which is like a milder version of seasonal affective disorder. And then it kind of does go all the way up to like really kind of intense and pervasive symptoms, which maybe need medication and kind of help from the GP. Really?
So it can go that far. And, you know, as far as therapy as well, again, I was sort of chatting with somebody the other day, a friend of mine who's also is a therapist, and she said what the Americans have got right that we haven't is that most people do have a therapist. Yeah, and it's not, you know, it's not that, you know, you've got to go there because you are a certain person. It's just good to talk.
Yes, it very much is. And I think, like you say, in the UK, there's not enough emphasis put on that. You know, we human beings, again, we are social kind of creatures. We thrive off kind of speaking to other people and sharing our feelings and what's going on for us. So definitely talking is really beneficial. It helps to normalise how we're feeling. We feel more connected to others when we talk. And like you say, it can just be a nice way to kind of decompress and, I don't know,
just to really,
how you feeling.
Yeah, well, just to get it out there, I suppose. And I think maybe here particularly we are kind of led to believe if you need a therapist then you've lost the plot, but that isn't the case.
No, definitely not. And I think, like you said, I think a lot of people, I think all of us could benefit from having a therapist. I don't think it's a shameful thing, and I think it can be a really, really helpful way of just keeping yourself mentally healthy. So definitely, if people feel like they want to talk, I would totally advise opening up and connecting with a therapist.
Because it's a time when you don't have to feel bad about talking about yourself. That's what it is a lot of the time, because you're there for that purpose.
Absolutely, yeah, that's it. And there are loads of kind of free kind of services. There's the NHS Talking Therapy service as well, which is across the UK. So if people, you know, want to kind of have some therapy and they want to access it through the GP, you can do. There's private therapists like myself. There's loads of options, but definitely it's a really safe space to talk about how you're feeling.
Brilliant. So just finally, before we let you go then, Lauren, this is going to be happening very soon. What are a couple of tips of what we can do before it even starts?
Yeah, so I know you said routine, people don't like it, but definitely having a routine but with pleasurable and enjoyable activities planned into each day will be really useful. Try and maximise how much daylight you can get. Even though we've got less time, try and get out into the daylight at least once a day. socialise and just exercise and try and eat healthy, really. It's just trying to kind of manage it rather than letting it take over.
Love it. It's lovely to talk to you, Lauren Bell. I've had to really restrain myself from not letting you know all of my issues and whatnot. I'm joking. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us today.
Thanks a lot, Becky. I've also done an Instagram post on the Yorkshire therapist as well, if anyone wants to read more about it.
Amazing. Okay. I'm straight on it. Cognitive behavioural therapist Lauren Bell.
Toby Foster at